Hello everyone and welcome to another Movie Night series review. Today we are talking about Skeleton Crew, or well, the first 3 episodes, which I was fortunate enough to be able to see a little bit early. This show is the latest chapter in the Star Wars universe. The show lets you know right off the bat when it takes place. Just in case you don't know, I won't spoil it for you. And there won't be any spoilers in this review. I'm just going to give you my general thoughts on the first 3 episodes. Was it a good start? Does it already fall flat? Will this be another win or loss for Disney? I'm happy to report, in my opinion, I'm really liking the show so far. Like, this is the best start one of the newer shows has had, probably since Andor. And don't get me wrong, it's not like tonally similar to Andor or anything like that. It's very much a Goonies vibe in the Star Wars universe, but it stays true to that. It's written exceptionally well. The ongoing story that they've done so far is really interesting. And some of the stuff that some of the other shows can't really get away with, this one does, because having kids as your leads kind of lets you as an audience member alleviate some of the melodrama and allow it to happen more, if that makes sense. A good example I use are the It films. It Chapter 2, in my opinion, is not nearly as good as It Chapter 1, because when it's kids, it feels a lot more like a reasonable journey for this insane things that they go on. Yet when they're all adults at the end of It Chapter 2 and they're just making fun of the clown until it disappears, that feels very weak and very dumb, but if they were kids, it works. And there are things like that with this series, particularly in the dialogue. When they come across people who are incredibly dangerous in the show, the dialogue is a bit, I don't want to use the phrase dumbed down, it's more simplified for the children who are the main characters, and you buy it more because they are kids. Yet, whenever it happened in Mandalorian Season 3 or Book of Boba Fett, it was just annoying because you're like, why is this the worst dialogue I've ever heard? Ahsoka was a bit guilty of that too. Not only does the dialogue work even more because it's more well-written, but also when it is simplified, you just accept it more because they're children on this journey. Now, I know I've said that a lot, but don't let that make you think that, oh, the show's just a dumb kid show. It isn't. It's incredibly charming, it's incredibly unique, and it's very true to what it is, right as soon as it establishes its tone within the first 20 minutes of episode 1. My biggest positive of the show is the overall story and the mysteries they're building out from the first 3 episodes. I'm not going to give anything away, but there is a mystery involving the planet that these kids are from. And that mystery is very interesting, and I'm really excited to know where it goes. I like this show so much that when the 3rd episode was over, I was legit sad I didn't have more to watch right away. I'm really liking it. And it's not perfect, at least, not so far. It does still kind of struggle from the Star Wars TV show thing of it looking a bit cheaper than the movies would. You can tell when the volume is used. There's one time in the 3rd episode where it's used to great effect. Like, it actually looks amazing. But in the first 2 episodes, whenever it's used, it doesn't look all that great. And look, if I'm completely wrong and the volume was never used on the show, then just the green screen work didn't look that good in some of the first 2 episodes, but it looked phenomenal in the 3rd. Jude Law also gives a really good performance so far. I think he's doing a really good job. The kids are also doing great. The character of Neil, I love him. I would die for him. The practical costumes, and there's touch-ups of CGI, but it looks great, and the child actor's doing a really great job. There are a lot of practical sets and cool costumes on the show, which I'm a big fan of. Another negative that I'll give the show, and I'm not going to mention the actor's name, because I'm unfamiliar with their work, and I don't want to be harsh, but there's one actor who plays the father of one of the lead characters who is just not doing it for me. But in the 3rd episode, they do look like they're setting up something with the father, potentially. And so there's a chance that the performance turns it around for me and I end up liking it by the end. But that's the only performance in the show so far that's been a little bit weak for me. Kerry Condon's also in the show. She's been doing a really good job so far. Oh, and the show was created by John Watts, and I believe Christopher Ford is the co-creator's name. And look, people have differing opinions on John Watts and his work. I'm really liking the show so far. I like most of his work that I've seen to varying degrees. I think some of it's okay, but I think some of it was great, like No Way Home. I think something that Skeleton Crew does great is it shows kids growing up in the Star Wars universe who act kind of like kids who are Star Wars fans. There's a brilliant sequence where 2 of the kids pretend to have a lightsaber fight. And it's like, all of us as kids were doing that when we hung out with each other. But it would, of course, make more sense in this world if you hear these stories that are happening in the galaxy. Of course, you would eventually think that's cool and play that with your friends. So things like that play really well, and it helps the vibe, the Goonies vibe that this story has. Oh, there's also an amazing new droid, who I believe is voiced by Nick Frost, if I'm not mistaken, And the droid is awesome. I'm loving him so far. He has one really great moment in the second episode that I was a big fan of. It's also setting up individual arcs for each kid in the story as well, which I find very interesting. And their dynamic and how the leadership dynamic is constantly changing between a couple of them. And the way that that's playing out is really interesting. Again, I wanted to watch more episodes when it was over. I was genuinely sad I didn't have more. And I'm really excited about that because I've never downright hated any of the Star Wars live-action shows that Disney Plus has done, although I have thought that some were not great. More recently and more consistently, they're just kind of mediocre to okay. And that is almost more annoying when you have the potential and you have this world to live in and do things in, like you want to see it be taken advantage of more. The only one that really blew me away was maybe the first season of Mandalorian and Andor. Andor is my favorite show that they've done. And this show, if it continues on this path and it ends in a great place, I would put this in the upper tier with the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian and Andor. Like, it's been really great for me so far. Now, it could completely fall off track and fall apart, as some of these shows do, which I'll do a review for the whole series once it's over. But, I'm really hoping that that's not the case and that this can continue to be really good. Oh, and I love when these shows and just Star Wars in general introduces like a new wacky kind of character. And there's a character in the 3rd episode that is a very cool character. They're like a map creator, wayfinder type of character that, of course, is very wacky. And the CG on the character was really well done. And I love the character. I hope that they come back in later episodes. I thought they were really fascinating, and I love when, these extensions keep happening to this world, and it builds on the story. It felt like it made story sense that we were meeting this character. But enough about what I think. When you have a chance to see the show, what did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I forget if it's premiering with 1 or 2 episodes, but when you've seen it, please let me know what you thought of it so far. I'm looking forward to getting past episode 3 and, going week to week with everybody else and seeing how it plays out. Hopefully it stays strong. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next review.